So welcome to our new series dedicated to solving CodeWars Kata challenge problems. And so just a little bit of background before we jump right in. CodeWars is a site that provides you with these coding challenge problems, in a variety of different languages. And they rank from difficulties of 8Q down to 1Q, with 8 being the easiest and then 1 being the hardest. So hopefully throughout this series, we're going to be solving some easy problems first at 8, and then 7 and 6, then hopefully get all the way down to 1Q, which is really difficult, but hopefully we can get down to that. And here you can see we have a newly made CodeWars account. Right now we have a personal ranking of 8 and our honor also as 8. And so as we solve these Kata challenge problems, we're going to see this personal ranking of 8 go down, and then we're going to see our honor go up. And that's sort of a way to show our progress. And so this first kata is called multiply. And in the instruction panel, it says that the code does not execute properly, and we have to figure out why. And so here in the solution panel, we see that we define a function called multiply, and we have 2 input parameters, a and b. And what's written right now is just a times b. And so clearly we need to return something, and we want to return a multiplied by b. So we just have to stick that return statement in there. And then we're going to attempt it here, and it's going to run a few different tests, and then it's going to show us that they all passed. And so this is actually the kata that you have to do before you can actually create a CodeWars account. It's just kind of a simple beginner screening question almost, just to show that you know a little bit something about coding before jumping in. And so we're going to submit that and then jump right into the next one. And so this kata is called beginner series number 2 clock. It also has a ranking of 8. And so the description is that the clock shows H hours, M minutes, and S seconds after midnight. Our task is to make a past function which returns the time converted to milliseconds. And so what's important to understand or to know here is that there are 60 minutes in an hour, there are 60 seconds in a minute, and then there are 1,000 milliseconds in a second. And so to convert the H, M, and the S, we have to just do a few multiplications. And so we're going to want to return H, which is hours, multiplied by 60 to get into minutes, multiplied by 60 to get into seconds, and then 1,000 to get to milliseconds. So right now what we've done here is we've converted H into milliseconds. And of course, if we have any minutes inputted to us through the M variable, we're going to have to modify that as well. So we're going to multiply M by 60 and then M by 1,000 to get from minutes down to seconds and then down to milliseconds. And then of course, our last input parameter S, we're going to have to multiply by 1,000 to go from seconds to milliseconds. And so basically this will input the function passed will have input parameters of H, M, and S, and then we're going to multiply by these integers to get to milliseconds. And so we're going to test it, and this test button will test a few basic test cases, and you can see that we passed all 5 and failed none of them. And then once you pass that initial test, you can actually attempt the problem. And then you can see it throws a bunch of different tests at you, a few of these basic tests and then a ton of random tests. And it does a lot more. And this number is actually usually pretty large, so you do have to take into account performance of your code, because you don't want this to time out. And so we're going to submit that and move right on to the next one. And so here, this problem is expressions matter. It is also a ranking of 8. And our task is, given 3 integers, a, b, and c, we have to return the largest number obtained after using the following operators in brackets, a plus, a multiply, and then just brackets. And it's important to know in this kata that you cannot swap, the variables a, b, and c. It has to stay in that, a being first, b being second, and c being third. We can't, multiply c by b and then add a to it. That's against the rules of the kata here. And so in our solution panel here, we're just going to we're going to define a list of possible answers. So we're going to define that, and we're going to say it's empty. And then we're going to basically append to this list. And see here, append is a built-in function in Python, which allows you to append whatever is in these brackets to the end of this list. And so instead of writing whatever, we're going to write some of these possible combinations. So we're going to do A plus B plus C. And then we're going to copy and paste this and do a couple variations of that. We want multiply as well. And then we need to use our parentheses. So it doesn't matter if we use the parentheses with addition, that's not going to change anything. But if we throw in some parentheses here, multiply A times B first, and then add C, that's going to make a difference. If we, similarly, if we multiply B and C and then add A, that's going to make a difference. And then we're missing a few others. If we want to add A and B first, and then multiply by C, that's going to be a little different. And then similarly, if we multiply A times the quantity B plus C, that's going to be a difference. And so what we've done here is we've done all the combinations with the plus, the multiply, and then the brackets, and then we've appended them all to this list called possible answers or POS answers. And so now what we're going to return is the max of this list, max of POS answers. And this max function here, it will basically just go through this list and then it'll return the max number. It's another built-in function of Python. Similarly, if you do min, then it's just going to return the minimum value. And so we're going to test this first. Hopefully we got all the cases correctly. And you can see here we passed all 19, failed 0. So now we're going to attempt it. And we've passed all of these. So then we're going to submit it and move on to our last one. And so for this problem, it's called return negative. It is also rank 8, so we're still in that kind of beginner phase. And the instructions say that in this simple assignment, you are given a number and have to make it negative, but maybe the number is already negative. So it looks like you just have to, if it's negative, then you just have to return it. But if it's positive, then you have to multiply by -1 and then return it. So we're just going to use some simple if statements. So if number is less than or equal to 0, we're just going to return that number. I believe that's 0. Yeah, we just want to return 0. So that's why we say or equal to. And then our next if statement is if number is greater than 0, then we want to return number times -1. And it's important to understand that you can do this with a variety of different ways. You could also just do an else statement, because obviously if a number is not 0 or negative, then it's going to be positive. However you do that, whichever way you do it, we're still going to get the negative of whichever number we pass. So we're going to test it. We positively tested all, or passed all the first test cases, and then we passed all these solutions as well. So we're going to submit that, and that's it for the first video. That's the first 4 really basic level 8 katas, and then hopefully we're going to be moving on to more difficult katas as this progresses.